Jewelry store manager slaps a black woman. What happened next shocked everyone. The sound of a hand hitting skin echoed through the pristine jewelry store as Marcus Williams, the store manager, looked down at the woman he had just slapped. What he didn't know was that Amara Johnson, the woman now touching her stinging cheek, owned not just this store, but the entire chain of luxury jewelry stores across the country. This is the story of how one moment of prejudice led to the most expensive mistake of a manager's career, and how it transformed an entire company forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below, hit that like button if you're ready for a story that will leave you speechless, and subscribe because we share stories like this that will restore your faith in justice. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. It was a Tuesday morning in downtown Chicago when Amara Johnson walked into the flagship store of Johnson Luxury Jewelers. Now, you might be wondering why the owner of a billion-dollar jewelry empire would be walking into her own store unannounced. Well, Amara had built her fortune on one simple principle: you can only truly understand your business by experiencing it the way your customers do. She made it a habit to visit her stores incognito, dressed casually, to see how her staff treated regular customers versus wealthy clients. On this particular morning, Amara wore simple jeans, a plain white t-shirt, and sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she carried a modest handbag. To anyone looking, she appeared to be just another young woman browsing jewelry she probably couldn't afford. But appearances, as Marcus Williams was about to learn, can be devastatingly deceiving. The moment Amara stepped through the glass doors, she noticed Marcus watching her with suspicious eyes. She had seen this look before in her other stores, and it always made her heart heavy. She walked slowly toward the diamond engagement ring display, genuinely interested in seeing the new collection her design team had created. Marcus approached her with barely concealed irritation. "Excuse me, miss, but those rings start at $50,000. Are you sure you're in the right place?" His tone was condescending, dripping with the assumption that she didn't belong there. Amara kept her composure, something she had learned to do over years of facing discrimination. "I'm just looking, thank you," she replied politely, continuing to admire the intricate designs. But Marcus wasn't satisfied with her response. "Look, lady, this isn't a museum. If you're not here to buy anything, maybe you should try the department store down the street. We have serious customers coming in today." The venom in his voice was unmistakable. Other customers in the store began to turn and stare. Amara felt the familiar burn of humiliation, but she also felt something else, a determination to see just how far Marcus would take his prejudice. She pulled out her phone and casually began taking photos of the jewelry displays, something any customer might do when considering a purchase. That's when Marcus snapped. "Are you recording in here? Give me that phone right now." He lunged forward and grabbed for her device. Amara stepped back, her voice firm but calm. "Sir, I'm simply looking at jewelry in a public store. I have every right to be here." The confrontation escalated quickly. Marcus's face turned red with anger. "You people always think you can come into high-end establishments and cause trouble. Well, not in my store." And that's when it happened. In a moment of blind rage and prejudice, Marcus Williams raised his hand and slapped Amara Johnson across the face. The entire store fell silent. Every customer, every employee, every person within 50 feet stopped what they were doing. The sound seemed to echo forever in that marble-floored showroom. Amara stood there for a moment, her hand slowly rising to touch her cheek. The sting of the slap was nothing compared to the rage building inside her, but she was a businesswoman first, and she knew that her response in this moment would define not just Marcus's fate, but the future of her entire company. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. Marcus, still riding high on his misplaced authority, puffed out his chest. "Marcus Williams, and I'm the manager of this store, and you're about to be escorted out by security." Amara nodded slowly. "Mr. Williams, I want you to call your regional director right now." Marcus laughed mockingly. "Lady, you're delusional if you think my boss is going to take your side over mine. I've been running this store for 5 years. I know who belongs here and who doesn't." What happened next would become legendary in the jewelry industry. Amara reached into her handbag and pulled out a small business card. But this wasn't just any business card. It was made of actual gold with her name embossed in diamonds. She handed it to Marcus with a calm that was somehow more terrifying than any shout could have been. Marcus looked at the card and the color drained from his face. Amara Johnson, Chief Executive Officer, Johnson Luxury Jewelers. He read it out loud, his voice cracking with each word.
That's right, Mr. Williams. You just slapped the owner of this company. But more importantly, you just showed me exactly what kind of experience my customers face when they don't look like what you think wealth should look like. The transformation in Marcus was immediate and pathetic. He began stammering, his hands shaking. "Ma'am, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I never would have. Please, I have a family. I need this job." But Amara wasn't finished. "You didn't know who I was, and that's exactly the point. You treated me badly, not because of anything I did, but because of what I looked like. How many other customers have you treated this way? How many people have left my store feeling humiliated and unwelcome?" By now, every employee in the store had gathered around, their faces a mixture of shock and fear. They all knew Marcus's management style, his subtle and not-so-subtle prejudices, but none had ever spoken up. Sarah, a young sales associate, stepped forward. "Miss Johnson, I've seen him do this before. Just last week, he made a young Hispanic couple leave because he said they were wasting his time. And 2 months ago, he followed an elderly black gentleman around the store like he was going to steal something." Other employees began to speak up, sharing their own witnessed incidents of Marcus's discriminatory behavior. It became clear that this wasn't an isolated incident, but a pattern of conduct that had been poisoning the store's atmosphere for years. Amara listened to each story, her resolve strengthening with every word. When the employees finished sharing their experiences, she addressed the entire store. "Ladies and gentlemen, customers and staff alike, what you've witnessed today is unacceptable. It's unacceptable in my store, in my company, and in our society. Mr. Williams, you're fired, effective immediately. Security will escort you out, and you'll never work in the jewelry industry again if I have anything to say about it." Marcus began to plead, but Amara held up her hand. "You had 5 years to treat people with dignity and respect. You chose not to. That's on you." But Amara wasn't done. She turned to address everyone in the store. "To my employees, who witnessed discrimination and said nothing, we need to have a serious conversation about courage and responsibility. To my customers who are here today, I want you to know that this is not what Johnson Luxury Jewelers represents." Then she did something that no one expected. She announced that every customer in the store that day would receive a 50% discount on any purchase as an apology for what they had witnessed. More importantly, she established a new company policy on the spot. From today forward, every Johnson Luxury Jewelers location will have anonymous reporting systems for discrimination. Every employee will undergo monthly sensitivity training, and any manager who treats a customer with anything less than complete respect will be immediately terminated. The ripple effects of that day spread far beyond the Chicago flagship store. Within a week, the story had gone viral on social media. Videos taken by customers in the store showed Marcus's discriminatory behavior and Amara's dignified response. The hashtag #JusticeAtJohnsons began trending worldwide. But here's where the story gets even more inspiring. Instead of trying to bury the incident, Amara used it as a catalyst for change. She launched a nationwide campaign called Everyone Belongs, featuring real customers of all backgrounds wearing Johnson jewelry. She partnered with diversity and inclusion organizations to completely overhaul her company's training programs. The financial impact was immediate and positive. Sales increased by 40% in the following quarter as customers flocked to support a company that had taken a real stand against discrimination. But more importantly, Amara began receiving letters from customers sharing their own experiences of discrimination in retail environments and thanking her for taking action. Marcus Williams, meanwhile, found himself unemployable in the luxury retail sector. Word of his behavior had spread throughout the industry, and no reputable company would hire him. He was forced to take a minimum wage job at a fast food restaurant, a humbling experience that many hoped would teach him the empathy he clearly lacked. 6 months after the incident, Amara received an unexpected visitor at her corporate office. It was Marcus Williams, but he looked different. Gone was the arrogant posture and condescending demeanor. He appeared humbled, exhausted, and genuinely remorseful. "Miss Johnson, I know I have no right to be here, and I'm not asking for my job back. I just wanted to tell you that losing everything made me realize how wrong I was. I've been attending counseling sessions to understand my prejudices, and I've been volunteering at community centers in underserved neighborhoods. I can't undo what I did, but I wanted you to know that your response to my actions changed my life." Amar listened carefully to his words, studying his face for signs of sincerity. What she saw was a broken man who seemed genuinely committed to change, but she also knew that actions speak louder than words. "Mr. Williams, I appreciate you coming here, but the real test isn't what you say to me today. It's how you treat people every day for the rest of your life. If you're truly committed to change, prove it through your actions, not your words."
The story of what happened at Johnson Luxury Jewelers became a case study in business schools across the country. Amara was invited to speak at conferences about leadership, diversity, and the business case for inclusion. She always ended her speeches with the same message: the way we treat people when we think no one is watching reveals who we really are. 1 year after the incident, Amara opened a new type of jewelry store in the same neighborhood where Marcus now worked his minimum wage job. This store had a different concept: affordable luxury jewelry with payment plans that made beautiful pieces accessible to working-class families. She called it Dreams Within Reach. The opening day was intentionally scheduled for the anniversary of the slapping incident. Local news crews gathered as Amara cut the ribbon, but the real story was who was in the crowd. Dozens of customers who had experienced discrimination in retail stores came to support her new venture. Community leaders spoke about the importance of businesses that serve everyone, not just the wealthy. And in the back of the crowd, Marcus Williams stood watching. He had walked over during his lunch break from the restaurant where he now worked his minimum wage job. When Amara saw him, she made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She approached him and spoke loud enough for the news cameras to hear. "Mr. Williams, I want everyone to know that you've spent this past year trying to become a better person. That matters. Change is possible, but only when we're willing to do the hard work of examining our own hearts." She then offered him something unexpected: a job at the new jewelry store, starting in an entry-level position with a probationary period and mandatory ongoing training. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she said, "but second chances must be earned, and they come with responsibility." Marcus's eyes filled with tears as he accepted the position. Over the following months, he worked harder than he had ever worked in his life, not just at selling jewelry, but at becoming the kind of person who treats everyone with dignity and respect. The transformation was remarkable. Customers who had been served by Marcus began leaving positive reviews, commenting on his humility, his attentiveness, and his genuine care for helping them find pieces they could afford and love. He had learned that true success in retail isn't about judging who can afford what, but about helping every person who walks through your door feel valued and respected. 2 years after the slapping incident, Amara promoted Marcus to assistant manager of the Dreams Within Reach location. It wasn't just a professional advancement, it was a symbol of the possibility of redemption and growth. At his promotion ceremony, Marcus addressed the gathered employees and community members. 2 years ago, I was a man filled with prejudice and hatred. I treated people badly because I thought their worth was determined by their bank account or the color of their skin. Miss Johnson could have destroyed my life completely, and I would have deserved it. Instead, she showed me that accountability and opportunity can coexist. She taught me that we can be better than our worst moments if we're willing to do the hard work of examining our own hearts. The ripple effects of that one moment in the Chicago jewelry store continued to spread. Johnson Luxury Jewelers became known not just for beautiful jewelry, but for being a company that stands up for what's right. Other businesses began adopting similar policies and training programs. The jewelry industry as a whole started having conversations about accessibility and inclusion that had been long overdue. Amara's story became more than just a tale of comeuppance. It became a blueprint for how businesses can turn moments of crisis into opportunities for positive change. She wrote a book about the experience called The Golden Rule of Business: Why Treating Everyone with Respect is the Ultimate Luxury. Today, Johnson Luxury Jewelers operates over 200 stores across the country, with both traditional luxury locations and affordable Dreams Within Reach stores. Every employee, from entry-level sales associates to regional directors, undergoes comprehensive training on unconscious bias and inclusive customer service. Marcus Williams eventually became a regional trainer for the company's diversity and inclusion programs, sharing his story with new employees as a cautionary tale and an example of how people can change when given the opportunity and held accountable for their actions. The slap that echoed through that Chicago jewelry store on a Tuesday morning became the catalyst for a transformation that touched thousands of lives. It proved that sometimes our worst moments can become the foundation for our greatest growth, both as individuals and as a society.